it's raining men. Oh baby, it's me raining men. Oh ladies, it's raining men. Choo-hoo! Oh baby, it's raining men. On Breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Pacho Man. Welcome back. Day 5, Breakfast with Bob from Kona and Huggo's on the Rocks. My name is Bob Babbitt, brought to you by Master Spas. As fuels go longer, HOKA Let's Fly. deboer wetsuits, Form Smart Swim goggles, Zoot Sports, original triathlon brand, Quintana Roo, Premium Plus Sports, and of course our Challenge Athletes Foundation. We have a special panel here from Pro Tri News. Mark Matthews, Patrick Lemieux, Talbot Cox. Round of applause for Pro Tri News. Here to tell you that who's going to win, why they're going to win. Let's start here with you, Mark. What the heck's going on? You guys been doing this for how long, first of all?
We've done this for 2.5 years now, Pro Tri News. I don't think we've ever picked it right.
Well, that's good.
We're going to call this our 145th episode.
I like that, yes.
But this must be the hardest race to pick, I think. There's just so much depth. Like, I don't think anyone sensible is putting money on this race. Like, I've never seen a field like this. I think we talked before the show. So I think any predictions are 20% guesses at best, right?
Exactly. And Talbot, you've watched a lot of these Ironman races. They play out differently than we think every single time. I was talking to a couple pro women, and they were on the way out in the marathon, and Chelsea's coming on the way back. They're like, who's that? They didn't even know who she was last year. So there's a lot of unknowns that could happen out there.
It's mind-blowing. And also to look at a field going into a race like this, usually when the World Championships comes around, you always see so-and-so's pulled off, someone else has pulled off, someone else has pulled off. Essentially no one has pulled off the start list. None of the top contenders have pulled off. Everyone is healthy, knock on wood, fit going into the race day.
And I think, Bob, the big thing that we wanted to pick your brain about today was you've been here every race since 1980.
Yep.
Without question, this is in your eyes, this is the strongest women's field ever assembled.
Yeah, because you've got Ironman World Champions, you've got Daniela Reef, you've got Annie Hogg, and you've got a number of women who can run in the 240s. We know the 250 run marathon time, I think that's going down. I think this year, and I think maybe course record goes down after seeing what Daniela did at Challenge Roth, going 8:08. I think we're going to see some action here.
And then talk to us, another big first here is it's women only. And how's the week been that you've been here? What's the energy been like? Can you just give some perspective to the people watching from home?
Yeah, I think what makes this race so special is, if you think about it, 1978, there was 15 starters, 12 finishers, all men. And the following year, the first woman, Lemieux, shows up, and I think people were like, I wonder if a woman can do this. And this woman goes off and she swims with the leaders. She rides her way in the second place and finishes 5th overall, sort of making the statement that women will always be a factor here at the Ironman. And a lot of other sports adapt to the women, where they have a smaller ball in basketball, they have a lower net in volleyball. They do things to adapt to what they think. Tennis is 3 sets rather than 5. They adapt to what they think is the quote-unquote weaker sex. There's never been the women have the same swim, bike, run, cutoff times. Prize money starting in 86 was always equal. It's always been about get from point A to point B. We don't care if you're male or female. You want to be the best, come here and show us.
Okay, and then I think, Talbot, what we've talked about internally was stacking up this race against Nice, right? Understanding that this was the first time that the fields were split. We're sensing that we want the Ironman World Championships to be here. There's the energy, the vibe. This is where ultimately
history.
We want them to be, right?
Absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, I loved last year. The women one day, the men the other day, the women cheering on the men cheering on the women. We're a family. We're a community. You want everybody, in my opinion, you want everybody together. But if that can't happen, I loved Nice. I thought that was great for the men. I think this has been spectacular for the women. I was telling you beforehand, one of my friends, Cherie Grunfeld, who's been here 20 times, she was swimming out in the bay and ran into another woman, and normally she goes, it's the first time I've run into somebody in 20 years where they said, oh, excuse me, sorry. When you run into a guy, they're like, get out of my way. What are you doing? Just the vibe has just been kinder, nicer. Everybody's supporting each other. It's you against the course and you against yourself. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, I think Jan summed it up really well. Did you see the video of Jan where he talked about the split? And he mentioned the family ethos as well. And that's why he wasn't so against the idea of moving the world champs outside of Kona, as long as it has a regular return here. He was more against the split because it loses that family feel. And there are so many triathlon couples that both want to come and race, etc. And my slight concern is that the average age here is 44 for females.
Yep.
And the average age of those that took non-qualifying slots, i.e. they rolled down to the bottom, they were allowed to take a slot, is even older than that. And my theory is that's because they can afford it. So they want to come here, they can afford it, they might have waited quite a long time. You might be able to afford it 1 year and want to go 1 year, but once that captive audience has ticked off their bucket list, I wonder what the field dynamic starts to look like if you keep this divide going and you don't let triathlon couples focus on one very expensive race together. Because if you think it's bad from America, it's really expensive to come from Europe.
Well, and also you look at the impact on couples, exactly, but really you think about sponsors. You're a sponsor and you are a vendor. Now you've got to go to 2 races to reach the same people you reached last year. So you're doubling, tripling your expense to get to these events. But you know what's been fascinating, being an all-women's field, I heard that the first day they basically sold out of everything, right? And I can relate to it because when our company owned the Rock and Roll Marathon, the guys come to the expo to get their stuff and leave. Women come to the expo to be there and feel the experience. And they had to fly more merchandise in from Tampa because they sold out of everything. And the expo in Nice was good, but nothing like what's happening here in terms of sales.
I think you're trying to walk me into a sexist shopping joke here, but
I don't think that'll be very hard.
I'm going to dodge it.
Go ahead.
Dodge it.
One exciting thing to look at is I think a lot of everyone there was a lot of talk that it was only going to be 1,100 women, 1,000 women.
Right.
The fact that there is 2,100 registered females at
Yes.
this World Championship is absolutely
incredible.
amazing. Amazing for the sport of triathlon as well.
It's a great statement for the sport. And years ago in the U.S., we used to have this Danskin Women's Triathlon Series sponsored by BMW. And seriously, there was 10, 12 events around the U.S. that all drew 2,000 plus, just women. And I think we forget that a lot of times women are intimidated to come out to something like this. You know, you're swimming, guys hitting you in the head, all that type of stuff. Knowing that guys aren't there can be a draw for people participating. And I'm sure a lot of the women who did make that decision to come and do their first ever Ironman here, or their first Ironman World Championship this year here, a lot of that was because women were feeling like, hey, you know what, I know I'm going to get support. I know there'll be people there for me.
Talbot, you pointed out to me some of the other huge sports that have women's only events. What's the marathon? Was it a Japanese marathon or Chinese marathon?
I believe
50,000?
Like 50,000 participants, women's only marathon. So amazing.
Yes. Well, and when our company owned the Rock and Roll Marathon Series, we went from 7 rock and rolls to 34 from 2008, 2011, 2012, and it was before that marathons were 75% male, 25% female. And rock and roll, because of the charity angle and because the whole idea was fun, 60% women. 650,000 participants by 2012, 60% women. And it changed the whole face of the expos and the race itself.
I want to dive into this race on
Let's
Saturday.
do it.
So I think, Mark, I'm hoping that you can walk us through what is it going to look like, swim, bike, run. Maybe we open with what we believe the weather forecast will be and how we think that's going to impact the race.
Yeah, so the weather forecast is looking like virtually no wind, which suggests fast times are potentially possible. There are some riders that won't like that. I imagine Daniela, if she wants to outright win rather than a record, would rather some wind. I think Kat would like some wind. Some of the, Elisa Norden would probably like some wind, particularly crosswinds, because it really breaks the group up. So I think that affects that. Also, the wind can help as a bit of a cooling factor.
Sure.
So if there's no overcast, which there's meant to be some forecast, luckily, it's just straight sun, no cooling breeze, and that can really ramp the temperature up. But it's looking calm, so it could be fast.
Okay, and then what are we going to be looking for when they take off in the water tomorrow morning? Who realistically fastest swim? How's that going to impact the race later on? I mean, who are the usual suspects that we anticipate will be pushing the race? Where will there be a split?
I think the main deal is I want to see where Daniela is, because I think she was like 7 minutes down last year. Yeah. And if she's that far back, and you saw how hard she worked she's always in the lead at the end of the bike. But by doing that, I think she cooked herself, and her marathon was off the back.
Yeah,
and Lucy will be off the front. But I think there's Rachel who's from Georgia, from the University of Georgia, was, I think Missy Franklin and her were the top swimming recruits out of high school. And I think she's playing her cards. She just wants to, I think she wants to swim on Lucy's feet, see if she can do that.
I don't think she'll be the only one either. Don't think Taylor Knibb swam hard at that practice swim.
No.
If you looked at the results and saw Taylor Knibb 3 minutes down, she was messing around at the back. She's got in, she swam off the side a bit. She did a few strokes of backstroke, hopped back in that group. Like, Taylor Knibb wants to get out the swim with Lucy, as she has done at the Collins Cup and PTO races. So I think she'll be there.
And Taylor loves, if you don't know her too well, she loves playing mind games with her athletes. And she's smart at that. She'll sit in that practice swim and be like, oh, all these other girls will just think that this is my fastest pace. And you look at other athletes like Ann Hugg, too, who's 9 minutes back, and she should be closer to the front when that race day comes. So, in my opinion, I see Taylor riding with Lucy, or swimming with Lucy.
My gut tells me with Taylor reminds me when Luc van Lierde came here in '96 after winning the Nice Triathlon. He'd never run a marathon. He'd never did an Ironman. He was invited here. You didn't have to qualify back then. And I was like, oh my God, he's never done an Ironman, never done a marathon. He's not going to be a factor. And he goes 8:04, breaks the course record by 5 minutes, and runs a 2:41 marathon despite having a 3-minute penalty. She's fearless. That's the one word I would use to describe Taylor. And she's like that little kid who is like bubbly and nice, and then you turn your back and she's like knifing you. And because she's here to win. And she'll be, sort of silly during the week, but she's here to win.
Yeah, for sure. I think the rest of the swim probably also looks like the next group's maybe Daniela, and then there'll be Lisa Norden in there. Chelsea Sodaro would like to be there. Best case scenario, Kat can be there. And then of the main contenders, we sort of have 7 names that are being banded around.
Yep.
I think the remaining 2 of Laura and Anne will be another 3 minutes down on that group with sort of a 7-minute deficit maybe. And then it's how it pans out after that.
And give us an understanding of what the athletes are thinking about on the bike, knowing that it's 90K out, 90K back. There's very few opportunities to get a true time split or an assessment of what's going on the road. So say an athlete is out of the swim, they know, okay, I'm 6 minutes down, and now they start pedaling on the bike and they're doing their prescribed watts. What are they thinking about, or what are they checking on the bike to see, am I making any progress here? Are they just waiting for the turnaround?
Yeah, that's super hard, right? So you get the first look once you take the hill up that goes right out of Palani. That's actually quite a long out and back, so they'll get a visual check there. They'll probably get time splits in town. And then most of the athletes will get the time splits at the end of the Queen K before they turn left to go up Harvey, because spectators can make it round if you do a bit of creative driving. So they'll get time splits there, but it's a lonely race, this. And some of those sections on the road, and I'm looking across at the lights of Chris, you can actually see minutes ahead when you crest some of the hills. So as long as you're not 9-10 minutes down, you can see 5 minutes ahead up the road at times, but not really.
And certainly there's motorbikes and other vehicles that you can maybe catch a glimpse of, but a lot of it you've got to do yourself, and you've got to just trust in your own plan and then see where the road takes you.
I honestly think that's a big reason why you see bigger time gaps here than you do in other Ironman races. Because like Daniela's not even using data, right?
No.
She's not got a computer on a bike. She's not got a power meter on a bike. She's just out there drilling it. It doesn't matter when it reads 300 all day long.
No.
It's fine.
She's fine with that. So when we look at Chelsea Sodaro, Annie Hogg, Lucy Charles Barkley, Fenella Langridge, these are the ones that I just tossed out, Daniela Reef, Kat Matthews, Laura Phillip, Taylor Knibb, and Lisa Norden. Like Lisa Norden and Laura Phillip had penalties last year, and they still were, 5th and 7th, 4th and 7th?
Lisa Norden had the second fastest bike split with a 5-minute
penalty. So that's the unknown that can take air out of the race, right? Somebody gets a penalty. Sarah Crowley got a penalty last year, and actually she still finished 7th. So that's the unknown, is penalties just sort of screw up the whole thing.
Yeah, and the 2 names there, you've got Fenella and Lisa. Like, they're not most people's podium picks.
No.
But they impact the race because they both swim well and they both ride well, so they feature. It's partly why they have good sponsors as well, because they're on telly, they're in the race and they're racing from the front. Lisa Norden could really help the Daniela and that kind of group. She rides so well. If Daniela's having an off day, you never know what you're going to get with Daniela. I hope she is. Lisa Norden will tow that group, or she'll help to get rid of them for sure.
What is interesting with Lisa, when I was looking at all her splits over the years, she's never run sub 3. No. She's never run sub 3. And I'm like, Lisa, back in the day, you were training with Annie Hogg. You had a sprint finish with Nicola Spirit for a gold medal, one of the best runners ever in our sport. You should be running 3 hours. And she's like, I know, that's the goal. I got to get to 3 hours. And if she gets to 3 hours, then she certainly could be top 5 here.
And she did say that she's in the best shape she's been since 2012. Changing coaches, coming into Ironman World Championships, the penalty last year. This could be the year that she gets onto the podium, possibly wins it all.
Is it fair to say that maybe the race won't be called as tight as it was after the controversy in the men's race in Lahti? Will the officials have directive to say you can only call penalties if they are egregious?
I got to be honest, I thought the Lahti race was called brilliantly. Like, if you cut into a group over and over and over, you get a penalty. The Lahti controversy was less than the controversy here. The Laura Phillip penalty, I think, feels unfair to most people. I think most of the athletes sit in that tent at the brief. So, yeah.
I think we're going to compound it, given the Sam Long penalty, the penalties here, what happened in Lahti. They want it to be a fair race, but are they going to give a little more boundary here?
Like in the Athlete Pro brief yesterday, the head referee, Ron, he's done a lot of these series. He makes it sound insanely easy to call drafting penalties here because the sun shines across you, your shadow strikes a line on the cat eye on the road. If there's a shadow on one cat eye and there's a shadow on the cat eye in front, you're within the draft zone. That's what he says. But there are big stretches where there aren't really cat eyes.
No.
And the motorbikes run up and down and they look from behind at an angle with... I hope there's less penalties, but I hope that's because riders are a bit more scared of penalties rather than Ironman become more lenient.
Last year when you were out here and you saw the penalties happening and people getting called and being in the penalty tent together and just going, this is awful, and just getting that, and I doubt if Kat's ever got a penalty.
She got a penalty in Tulsa drafting. She rode up 3 minutes into 2 girls in 50K, joined the back of them and got a penalty for drafting.
And that's exactly what happened to Magnus here last year, right? Yeah. Magnus missed his special needs back. What bothers me, it's always the best cyclist. Like Lisa Norden's 5-time time trial national champion in Sweden. So someone like that is not drafted.
There's no way Lisa Norden's drafted.
No, and then with Sarah Crowley, I think it was at an aid station. So it's like, where do they call the penalties? I think that's an issue.
So that was actually a question from a pro. It's a good question. Are you calling drafting in aid stations? And the answer is yes, but they're not. So the rules apply through aid stations, but the referees quite rightly realise that's actually quite a dangerous point of the race. And if you concertina into the group whilst you're grabbing the bottles, they'd rather you grab the bottles safely, but then you need to exit that, leaving the gap. So I hope there's no penalties in aid stations are terrible. It's just a waste of everyone's time.
The other thing is when they're heading up to Hawi. When you're heading up to Hawi, I think Lisa might have got hers heading up to Hawi going uphill. And didn't Braden Curry get his going? No, Braden didn't. It was somebody else got one going uphill in Nice.
Yeah, I must admit though, I drafted like heck in 2019 riding up the hill in Hawi.
Did you?
Oh mate, it was a horrible headwind. And this group came past me, and there were like 40 guys. And I know this is age group racing, but as soon as they pulled in front, my watts dropped to 50. Like it does. If there's a wind up there, don't think just because it's hill. What I don't like is the hard one here. Sorry, Pat. Is it's actually quite rolling, and you concertina up onto the back wheel as the athlete slows onto these hills on the way out. If you don't come off the pedals before them, you run into the draft zone because obviously the relative time on the road gets shorter. So like a big thing we've talked about is if Kat's behind someone, she has to start soft pedaling before they do. Let the gap go to 20 because you'll run into the 12. That's what worries me.
The other thing that bothers me here is because the field's so deep. Right? A lot of races, you got 3 to 5 top pros there, and it's not really an issue. But here, with it being so deep, and you've got a group of 6, 7 cyclists, and the person wants to pass one, they can't pass one person at a time, right? They've got to go past the whole group, which forces you, in my opinion, not to race.
I don't know if the groups are going to be that big here.
Okay.
I will say it will be interesting to see where Taylor comes out because she's going to want to hit the front of the race as quick as she can. And I could be maybe biased. I could see Taylor coming off with almost a 10-minute lead here, would not be surprised. But if Lucy can get on her wheel, ride with her for a bit, it would be amazing for Lucy if she can catch on a ride for a little bit. But then also, too, a lot of those girls are not going to want to let the group split up. And if you get Danielle and Lisa, I believe a lot of those runners are not going to want to let them get up the road, and they're going to overbike climbing to Javi and could explode on the way back. And a lot of people think, Mark touched on our podcast on this, a lot of people think that Daniela surges at the end of the bike. It's really just at the back 2 hours, everyone else is completely falling apart.
Yes.
So Daniela was sick in Lati. We all know that. I think that we see Daniela absolutely blown away and potentially will she ever see Taylor on the bike?
I think this leads us into just getting straight into some picks. What do you think?
No, we're going to do some running. Come on.
We're gonna. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Okay.
going to do a bit of
Okay.
running.
Let's talk a little running.
All right, let me. Here's what's gonna happen on the run.
He knows Kat's going to run through the field, so he needs to talk about it.
No, but what we're gonna do is, it's gonna pay off for the athletes that stick to their plan.
Right.
So if you're out on the bike and you're thinking about the athletes behind you too much and you're pressing too hard, you're gonna pay for it on the run. If the athletes behind see a couple women with what they think is the craziest gap they've ever seen before at this race, and the chasers press too hard, they're going to pay for it come the run. And I think what we are going to see tomorrow are some lead changes, and we're going to see them late in the marathon, and we're going to be what we see at the start of the marathon is going to be very different than what we see at the end. And I think that will everyone's going to want to stay glued to their TV because we don't know what's going to happen.
So last year, one of the things, Chelsea Sodaro was in the group riding cleanly, and Cam Watt was out there, who was, I think, coaching Sarah Crowley at the time, and he started screaming at Sarah and the rest of the girls, "Get rid of Chelsea. She's a great runner." Do you think there'll be a concerted effort by people going, okay, is Chelsea with us? Let's make sure we work together and get her out of here.
I think there are 4 women here that can run sub 250. I think that's Anne, Kat, Chelsea,
Taylor.
and I'd say Laura Phillip.
Yes.
Now, Taylor could, because it's bloody Taylor Neb. I mean, who knows? But I think the 4 on paper that have Chelsea's never run sub 250, but she had an incredible run here.
251, she was fine. Yeah,
whereas
she'll
the
get
other 3 have
Yes.
they've all done it.
Right.
So will people look at them like, yeah, but I think they'll look at them themselves. Like, Kat doesn't want to get off the bike with Anne or Chelsea. Like, why would you? Like, if you cannot, then take 2 minutes, she'd be happy all day. I don't know if Anne wants to get off the bike with Chelsea. Like, last year, Chelsea dropped from the back at half. But Anne's riding really, really well.
Yep.
And Chelsea's riding's not shown itself. I think the person that they will think is easiest to get rid of, maybe naively, is probably Chelsea. Anne, I think you need to never let get on, because Anne's riding so well. If she closes that swim gap and gets on, what we've seen this year, you're not dropping Anne Huggo on the bike. She's riding super well. And then the other runners like Daniela in St. George, 21. People play down that run. Like, she ran insanely well there.
And Roth, she had a great run.
But she's never going to want to take one of those 4 to the run.
No, that's why she always wants to be off the bike first, so she doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, and I think it'll be amazing. I do think if someone runs away in the first half of the run, even 2 minutes at the turnaround, don't think they won't get caught then. Because some people pace this really badly. And even Taylor Nib, she runs 90 seconds slower in the back half of her half marathon every time. What does that turn into in a marathon, maybe? Hopefully a lot.
The other thing that always happens here is because when you're out in the lava fields, you're by yourself. It's a lot of solitude, and it gets really lonely. You get back to town, you look at the first mile splits for a lot of folks, they're 20, 30 seconds faster than they want to go. Who's going to leave their race in that first mile because the crowds are screaming for them?
It's a marathon. You've got to stick to the pace.
Yeah, you got to stick to a plan.
And if you can't, if you overextend yourself in the first 5K, you're going to pay for it in the last 10.
Although we did see last year, come down to Leahy, I'm on the media comms, and Chelsea comes running by, and I was like, she's going to hit the front of this race and hit it quick.
Yep.
So we let all the comms know, get a moto back to Chelsea, follow Chelsea, she's moving fast. And, of course, like what you said, right away you think, first mile, everyone's running fast. And then they're on their way back from the turnaround, and she's already mowed through half the girls, and you're like, oh my God, she's going to win this thing. And then I think she was running up Palani with Lucy.
She was.
While Jan Frodeno's handing out water cups, and
Yep.
you're just like, oh my God.
I do think people always make the wrong assumption, though, that if you run the first half slower than you plan to, you'll definitely better run the second half faster. Lots of athletes just can't do that. If you can't fuel correctly, your body just shuts down because of the time, because of the load on the legs, etc. So, like, everyone knows Kat runs even splits. She always does. She just can. I don't really know why. I'm not sure if Anne backed off by 2 minutes in the first half of the marathon, she could run the second half actually any faster. Anne will know that. Her coach will know that. So when I say people die in the second half, I don't really mean it as an insult to their pacing. I just mean that's how most people's bodies tend to work. So should Chelsea run a bit slower through the front half if she's with Anne and Kat? Probably not, because she'll probably tail off by the same amount anyway, I think.
Is there anybody who we're not thinking about on this list?
I still like Lisa Norden. I
like Lisa Norden. To win or just to be podium or be top 5?
Playing a big role in the race and
Okay.
pulling that group. But I think one of the coolest things for the sport that we could see is if Kat, Anne, and Chelsea all roll into transition at the same time. Not for Mark, but to watch those three have a run battle together down Alihi all the way down the Queen K would be absolutely amazing.
See, from my perspective, because when Daniela won Roth, who happened to be in town to be there to greet her at the finish line, but Chrissy Wellington, who held the course record and the world record, right? And that 8:18, and she went to 8:08. Here, Natasha just got inducted in the Hall of Fame. We're talking 5 wins for Daniela, 6 for Natasha. How cool would it be for Natasha to be at the finish line when Daniela gets her 6th win to celebrate Natasha's Hall of Fame?
Should we go into picks?
Sure, let's do picks.
Are you picking Daniela then?
I'm gonna pick Daniela for the win, and I'm gonna pick Annie Hogg for second. I'm gonna pick Lucy for second because she always does that, and Annie Hogg for third.
Yeah, I have this joke with Kat that if you want to win the Ironman World Champs, you literally need to beat one person.
Yes,
If you just turn up and beat Lucy Charles, everyone else is irrelevant. 'Cause
Exactly.
she'll come second.
Because she's always second. Yeah.
But I like Lucy for this race. I think.
Did you tell Kat that, by the way?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't pick Kat, by the way, Bob, on the podcast. I
Oh,
just
you don't?
No,
No. Okay.
sometimes I do, but no, not normally. So I'm going to exclude Kat from my picks.
Okay.
I think Lucy's a shoo-in for a podium. I like Anne Haug for a podium. She's been so consistent this year. I think you either have to pick Daniela to win, or she'll be 12th.
13th or 12th. Yeah.
So I'm going to take Daniela for the win.
Look at you.
Yeah, and I'm going to take Lucy Charles for second. I'm going to take Lucy Charles for the win.
Okay.
I'm going to take Daniela for second, and I'm going to take Anne Haug for third.
Okay.
Lucy runs down Daniela with 5K to go.
Whoa! You heard it right here. What do you think, Patrick?
If I said that, Mark would just blast me. He would be like, dude, what? No. Absolutely not. Look, I think there's going to be 3 names that we talk about a ton tomorrow. And, coincidence, 2 of them are my athletes. But the reality is that, Kat Matthews and Taylor Knibb are going to feature very, very heavily tomorrow. And their strengths are lopsided. So we're going to see, realistically, we're going to see Taylor on the front end of the race. And then starting the run, Kat Matthews is going to begin to feature very, very heavily. I think that Daniela Reef, we are going to see a monster performance tomorrow. And I think that there's Challenge Roth sets up perfectly for Kona, given the timing.
It
and
does.
I think that what we saw in Roth, we're going to see something very similar tomorrow. And I think that no matter the weather forecast, I'm expecting a big one from Daniela.
So what does that mean? First, second, third? Come on now.
Daniela's going to get first, Kat's going to get second, and Taylor's going to get third.
Wow. Talbot, Taylor.
I hate doing picks because, one, you don't want to pick what everyone else picks, so then because it could be completely different, then you can pick, oh, I told you so the next day. I love Danielle on the podium. I'm just gonna throw up some random ones. There's so many girls in this field that could have an incredible days. Let's pick Kat for the win.
There we go.
I think that she could. I think that she'll surprise a lot of people.
Take him out to dinner. That'd be nice.
There you go. Here, can I see that $100?
Need some new shoes. Yeah.
And then I'm going to pick Lisa Norden second.
I like it.
And third, a lot of it will depend on how big of that gap will be coming off the bike. You're going to be seeing that feed helmet all day long on the broadcast. It's going to be crazy of Taylor Knibb.
I'm going to throw out just a little wild card here.
Yeah.
I think that Taylor will have a double-digit lead.
Off the bike.
Yeah.
Off the bike.
Off of the major contenders.
Love it.
And it will be interesting to see how patient she can run that run. If she goes out blazing trying to run away from everyone, I mean, if I was Taylor and I had a double-digit lead, the first aid station, I'm walking through the aid station.
Just like Chelsea
and I'm
did.
cooling my body off.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to race my race. But third place, Lucy Charles.
There you go. Well, thanks, you guys. This has been a lot of fun. I like this, doing a little Tri news.
How exciting is it, though, that we are – I mean, I can't speak for these three, but Chelsea was very clear heading into very clear, but going into this World Championship was like, we want
not
the
really,
sponsors to come out, we want the media to come out, and we want everyone to show up for the World Championships. And we're 4 dudes, and I can't speak for you guys, but I'm more excited for this race than I was for Nice. This is the best Ironman field I have ever seen assembled, and I mean, it is going to be a phenomenal show tomorrow.
It's going to be phenomenal. Love it. Again, Breakfast with Bob, round of applause. Tri News. Mark Matthews, Patrick Lemieux, Talbot Cox. Thank you, boys. Poncho Man, take us out.
It's raining men. Oh, ladies, it's raining men. 'Cause it's breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man. Woo!